Mr. Estes is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all our witnesses today for being here. I appreciate having field hearings outside of the D.C. Beltway to hear firsthand really how our policies that are made in Washington affect families and businesses. And I think today's really useful as we talk about trade here, particularly in a hub of global commerce. There's strong bipartisan support for some of the trade themes we've talked about today, expanding markets for our manufacturers and producers, continuing the good work we started with USMCA, enforcing our existing agreements, and holding China accountable. I briefly want to touch on a nonpartisan common sense bill that I believe will help us in the competitive on a global stage and enhance our ability here at home to innovate and expand trade opportunities. The bill restores the immediate R&D expensing for American innovators and entrepreneurs, the American Innovation and R&D Competitiveness Act. I was joined with my Ways and Means colleague on the other side of the aisle, Congressman John Larson, and many others on this committee. According to the R&D Coalition, the U.S. share of global R&D investments in 2019 was 30%, which is down from 33% in 2009 and 40% in 1999. On the other hand, China, their global shares of R&D expenses gone up. It was 24% in 2019, a big jump from 5% in 2000 and 15% in 2009. That means that China's R&D expenses have grown by 400% in just 2 decades. By disincentivizing R&D here at home, American tax policies encourages manufacturers and production to move abroad. And we know where R&D occurs is critical for job manufacturing, job growth, and having jobs, period, that then allow us to export American-made products. Mr. Romano, the National Taxpayers Union called this bill a no-brainer and thinks that given its broad bipartisan support and real-world application, it should pass with ease. Do you agree with this as a no-brainer? And what would you say to my colleagues to help encourage them to support legislation like this?
I would absolutely say that it agrees. That I would agree with that. From the standpoint of research and development, you think about what we do. We're a miner, and we upgrade the products that ultimately we sell as finished goods to, people like you. Our product is a quality of life product, and the only way we're going to stay ahead of the Chinese is through investment in technology. Technology for the products that we make, the way we make them, and obviously reinvesting in technology and supporting growth with our own employees so that they have the technology and the skills that are required to, as we upgrade our facilities, they've got the capability to run those facilities with new techniques.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I talked a little bit about China and their R&D investments. We also know that China has been involved in predatory trade practices and participates in atrocious human rights abuses. At the same time, they've used their Belt and Road Initiative to deepen ties with other countries, while the United States has taken a back seat to some of these practices, including expanding trade. This is deeply disturbing and has a detrimental impact to U.S. workers and small businesses. From a human rights and economic standpoint, Mr. Turkle, what's your assessment of China's aggressive approach to trade, and what should the U.S. be doing to counter the Chinese Communist Party and these practices?
Thank you very much for the question. The BRI that you mentioned also has something to do with the ongoing genocide and enslavement of the Uyghur people. When you look at least in the last 10 years of Chinese economic growth, it has been slowed because they claim that they got millions of people out of poverty, but at the same time it created a vacuum, a labor shortage, which still is the case. And they try to resolve that issue by using the Uyghurs as a modern-day slave. That's one. And the other is a political reason, as I alluded earlier. It's about total control. So one of the things that we have to do in order to address this is to look at the ways in which that we can not only fully enforce the existing laws, but also looking at new laws. One of the new laws that I think that would be very helpful is the modeling the FCPA, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, to make human rights abuses, enslavement of Uyghurs, atrocity crimes, a law enforcement matter, attaching it to the existing law that we're discussing today. The other thing is that we need to implement Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act, that specifically mandates the administration to continue to sanction China's entities. And the UFLPA also requires entity list designation. Since last June, there are only 20 companies that have been designated. We need to expand that. There are 55,000 entities doing business in the Uyghur region. We don't have to designate all of them entity list, but the vast majority of them, including this one here that I'm showing, this amazing report produced by my colleagues at the Uyghur Human Rights Project, reporting the dates, red dates, coming to the United States that are produced, exported by Xinjiang Production Construction Corp., which recognized by the United States government as a paramilitary and also sanctioned under the Global Magnitsky Act. I'd like to ask Chairman for your permission to include this in the record.
Without objection.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And there's so many issues to talk about. I'd love to talk about some agriculture issues from Kansas with New York, but unfortunately I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you.